Greetings and welcome to my channel. Please subscribe, comment and hit the like button. You did? Great. Today I got for you more creepy true stories from Reddit. When you think about it, we do live in a very strange world, but the most of the time we don't pay attention to things around us. Who knows how many times we were watched while we slept. Leaving you with that happy thought, try to relax and enjoy the stories. 3 a.m. experience. This happened when I was 7 and I was sleeping in my parents' room because I didn't have my own room at the time. My dad was working at a casino down the Lonely, which was about 30 minutes away from my house at the time, in a housing complex where every house looked exactly the same, except with different colored shackles on the top of the houses. It was around 2:32 in the morning when I woke up to go to the bathroom and get a glass of water before going back to sleep. I spent a while in the bathroom, and since I didn't have a phone at that time, I was playing with my old SpongeBob Knows Your Name doll from around 2001. I was complete SpongeBob fan, as I had a Patrick and Squidward toys in my house computer's room, where all the toys of mine were kept in the closet. I finished going to the bathroom and proceeded to go to the kitchen where my grandfather was asleep and left the TV on. I just left it on as he tended to keep it on 24/7. It seemed a bit tense in the kitchen, but I just ignored it. I poured myself a glass of water from an old water dispenser from where we lived down in Tucson. I went back to my parents' room and I laid back down after drinking my water. Around 10 minutes passed and I couldn't fall back to sleep. I looked for my mother's iPad, which I usually just watch YouTube videos until I fall asleep. I found the iPad case, opened it, and it was dead. I put it back where I found it and just lay there. 2 minutes passed and I suddenly had the urge to sit up. I followed the urge and sat up, stuck staring at the corner where my parents' lamp is. It turned off randomly, and I saw some black figure. It choked me until I could wake up my mother, who was right next to me on the bed. She got up and I could barely speak. I was completely out of breath. She grabbed me and ran into the living room where my grandfather was sleeping and told me to sleep out there for the rest of the night. The exact day after that, I was sitting on the couch with my SpongeBob doll and my Woody doll. My Woody doll wouldn't stop going off, so we had to take out the batteries. A few hours later, the Woody doll went off again, but this time in a much louder manner. You could hear it from all the way back from the back of my house. It just said, "Reach for the sky." I grabbed it and checked the batteries after it's done saying the phrase. The batteries weren't even in there, so it just made it even more confusing, not to mention that my SpongeBob doll said, "I'm going to kill you, James," which is my name, but was never programmed into the doll, nor was the phrase. So it just made it even more creepier. I'm 12 now, and every time I wake up around 3 a.m., I feel something watching over me. Can a mirror lie? My name isn't important, but what's important is the man. I am a 15-year-old male who became interested in spells at 13. I have spent the whole time between those ages experimenting with spells. Most turned out to be summoning and others were curses. I devoted nearly a month trying to cast a curse on someone I wasn't particularly fond of. It succeeded, but that same night I saw a man. He was dressed in the pitch-black trench coat and plague doctor's mask. He was only visible because of a slight glow coming from my charging phone. He didn't say a word, just stood and stared. I tried to ignore him by going to sleep, but the feeling of being watched became stronger. I walked to see him nearly a foot away from my face, breathing heavily. He then stood up and walked through the wall he was facing. That was my only encounter with him until about a month later. I was looking in the mirror after taking a shower. I saw him standing behind me. This time he spoke. "How do you continue?" I didn't think about answering the question until he demanded me to say. He angrily yelled, "Answer!" My only response was that I didn't know. I waited to see if he wanted anything else from me. He said nothing. I turned to leave and he was gone. I checked the mirror again, and he wasn't there either. Since then, I have perpetually felt like I was being watched. I have seen him on street corners, other seats in school and restaurants, and in the mirror as well. He continues to speak to me, but I never respond. For those getting interested in spellcasting, I would strongly advise against it. Creepy shadow people. Well, I live in Canada and I live in Edmonton, Alberta, and I have had some freaky-ass experiences in my home. Well, my whole family has. Examples of things that go on in my house are stuff like sleep paralysis and things nowhere close to anyone being moved in front of us. Also a whole bunch of creepy noises and things going bump in the night. My house is a very old trailer home on the outskirts of the city, and I'll give you a rundown about my family. My mom, a very religious woman, is a believer in supernatural and a horror movie fanatic, I guess. My younger brother, who is 16 years old, is a very avid soccer player and plays on Victoria both the men's team and U18 teams. This will tie into the story, so don't worry. About 2 months ago in April, I was home alone gaming in my room playing some CSGO with a mate. Well, I had played for about 2 hours and I was sick of playing CSGO, and I decided to turn my PC off and watch Netflix on my phone. Just as I started watching a new show I found on Netflix, I heard some noises from the kitchen. From examples such as the cabinets were opening and closing, plus the dishes in the sink were being moved. That isn't unusual, since when my mom gets home after my brother's saucer game practice, she put some of the dishes from the living room into the dishwasher and put the clean dishes into the cabinets. Well, without thinking about how long my mom was gone for, which was relatively a short time, and she wouldn't have been home for around an hour or two, I left my room to see something in my hallway, just standing outside of the kitchen, which connects to the hallway through the short corridor. As I focus at the thing at the end of the hall, I thought it might be my bro. I realized then it doesn't have a shadow on the wall behind it, which was weird. This piqued my curiosity and I decided to take a harder look at the thing. My heart goes into my throat as I realize it's like a shadow-like silhouette made of wispy black shit. As I stand just outside my room, I think it shook me so bad I didn't even know what to do. Without even thinking about it, I opened my door and slammed it behind me, fearing for my life. All I could think of doing was calling my mom and telling her what I just saw. She tells me to get the F out of it in those exact words, and I did. I opened up my window, which doesn't have a screen, and hooped out of it and booked it into my friend's house. He lives about 2 houses down from mine, and when I get there, I tell my friend what happened. To my horror, he starts to go pale and begins freaking out, and tells me about one of the times he was at my house for gaming night, and we planned on him staying on night, which he didn't because of this. He began by telling me his story. He was gonna go to bed on the living room couch, and out of the corner of his eyes he said he saw something in the kitchen that looked like a figure made out of black mist. He didn't tell me this because he didn't want to scare me, and he told me he was gonna sleep in his old bed that night. I'm still living in that house, and sometimes I still feel as something is watching me. I hope that I don't meet that thing again. The Man in the Abandoned House. This true story happened to me when I was 9. Me and my friends, who I will call Mike, Josh and Mickey, we were going to explore an abandoned house which was in the middle of the woods. We checked the front and back door, but they were locked, so we found a broken window about 4 feet high, so we climbed in. It smelled like shit, piss, mold and vomit in there. We took our flashlight, cause this happened at 6 o'clock in the winter, so it was really dark. We searched the middle floor and went upstairs. There were 3 rooms. I searched one of the rooms. I peeked into the room, it was really dark. Then I did something stupid. I pointed my flashlight into the room and saw a person sitting on a couch. I screamed holy effing shit and ran past my friends down the stairs and jumped out of the window, hurting my knee as I landed on the gravel and rocks under the window. Then my friends jumped out. We ran and hid in the bushes. The man came through the door and yelled, "Don't you effing kids come back or I kill you," and went back inside. Then we all went home. The house is demolished now, but this wasn't the first time some crackhead has been in the house. My paranormal experience. I am a 16-year-old male and I used to be a bit skeptic to all things paranormal until one weekend at the abandoned house. To give some backstory, I was with my two best friends at the time, Delaney and Julia. We were home alone and bored at Delaney's house with nothing to do. I can't remember whose idea it was, but one of us had the idea to drive around some of the old dirt roads and check out abandoned buildings. There are a lot of abandoned places around where we live. It's pretty far out in the country, surrounded by either farms or woods. So we went to the first two old tobacco houses, took a few pictures and just sort of goofed off. We got back on the road and saw an old unkept driveway. Keep in mind, hardly anyone lives on this road. So we decided to drive down the driveway despite Julia saying we shouldn't because it didn't feel right to her. Not the fact that it would be trespassing, just that she had extremely bad vibes about that place. However, Delaney and I insisted. We drove down it and went pretty far back into the woods. This is where weird things started to happen. We parked the truck in a little clearing and noticed an abandoned house in the distance. However, before we got out of the truck, the front sensor went off beeping like crazy. Then so did the back one. It was as if someone was walking around the truck. The weird thing about this is we were parked in a clearing, so there was nothing to make the sensors go off. Even if they were, they would have gone off before we even parked the truck and wouldn't have just randomly go off in that order. Delaney and Julia were kind of freaked out, but I just ignored it. It was until later that this would freak me out too. We all got out of the truck and started walking towards the house. I was in front with my friends walking a decent distance behind me. If I'm honest, I was just showing off and acting fearless. I wasn't that scared until I saw her, a woman. A woman with dingy, unkempt-looking hair in a colonial-style dress looking around the corner of the house. She looked at me and just put her finger up to her lips and shushed me very loudly. The feeling I had is almost indescribable. Imagine feeling as if all senses of safety and protection is gone and you don't feel at all happy. My heart felt like it stopped. I started crying. I was so scared. I knew she wasn't human. I don't know how, I just knew. I turned around to my friends and screamed "run" and started sprinting back to the truck. My phone flew out of my pocket about halfway back to the truck. My friend Julia told me this had happened and I told her to leave it. Now if you know me, you'd know I'm not ditching my phone, I'm serious. Julia's and Delaney's got back to the truck. We tried to open it but it was locked. Delaney's reached for her keys but they were gone, and so were Julia's phone. As if whatever that thing was trying to keep us there. Delaney ran back and picked up Julia's and my phones and found her keys. We got in the truck and floored it out of there back to Delaney's house. You might think it's just coincidental, we dropped all of our things, but the thing is our phones and Delaney's keys were all deep in our pockets and it didn't make sense for them to just fall out on their own like that. Later at the house we were all talking about the entire situation and I was explaining what I have seen. My friends didn't even hear the shush, nor did they see the woman. I was afraid they didn't believe me, but Julia reassured me. The look on my face and the tears were proof enough for her to run as well. We later found that there have been a few ghost sightings on that road by workers at Fort Pickett, a military facility nearby. Thank you guys for stopping by. If you have scary story of your own or somebody told you interesting story, please feel free to send it to me. My email is in the description box. And since you are already here, please subscribe, leave a comment and hit the like button. Thank you, stay safe and I'll see you soon.